Alright, so in the last video, we basically got two numbers. We got the number of dice that we're going to use, either one or two, and we'll use that later on in the program. And we got the number of players. So what I want to focus on right now is setting up the number of players. Now I don't want to just call the players by player 1, player 2, player 3, because if you play the game enough times, especially with a lot of people, you might be player 1 the first time, player 3 the second time, player 6 the third time, and you might forget where you're at. So what I want to do is I want to set up names for each of the players so that it will call you by name. Okay? So we're going to set up something called an array list, and we're going to add values into that. We're going to have two of them, all right? One for our players' names and one to store their scores. And then I'm going to explain a little bit how this works just in case you don't know. All right. So once again, this is case sensitive. But you type in array list, you have a capital A, capital L, then you have a left arrow and a right arrow, all right, which you can find down next to the M key. That's the mic key on your keyboard. And if you hit shift, the one directly to the right of the M key will be the left arrow, and the one right next to that or to the right of that will be the right key. And then you put in there what you're going to store, what type of data type. In this case, for our players, our names, it's going to be a string. Then you give it a name. Now I'm calling mine players. You can call it names. You can call it whatever you want. But make sure it makes sense. Okay, and don't make it too long because you're going to be using this later on in your code. And then we're going to set that equal to a new array list. And at the end here, it's open close parentheses. And then semicolon at the end of the line. We do the same thing for scores. As you can see, it looks exactly the same, except in this one, we're putting an integer or their score. And we're going to initialize it to 0. All right, and we're going to do this in a loop because if you have, say, 3 players, okay, if we put in 3 for the players, we want to only do it 3 times. We want to prompt them for a name 3 times. And when we enter that name, we also want to go ahead and add a value of 0 to the scores. All right. And the way this is going to work, the first player that we enter, let's just say it's Joseph, he's going to be in position 0, and his score in the scores array list is going to be in position 0. That way, when we go back to change his score, add to his score, take away from his score, whatever, we just need to call on that position 0 for both the players array list and the scores array list, and they're going to line up. Now, to give you a little bit better picture of how that works, I used Google Sheets over here. Basically said, okay, we got the players array list and the scores array list. And these are the indexes in those array lists. So you start at 0, because that's what we do in computer science, and then you count up from there. Now, for most of the people that are going to be playing these games, of course, they're not going to count from 0. They're going to consider this player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, player 5, and so on. All right, so when we add that first name and that first score, they're going to be in position 0. Then when we go to the second name and score, it's going to be in position 1, and so on, so forth. All right, that way we can access both of the array list, and they line up, and we can basically manipulate anything in position 0. Now, this is a very simple array list setup. You could set up more complex things in other games if you want. But this is like the quick down and dirty of how this is going to work. All right, so hopefully this makes sense to you. It gives you a little bit of a picture of how it's going to work or how it's going to be stored in these array lists. Now we need to go back to our code because I gave you this. And we need to basically create a loop down here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and type in what I want you to do. And then, as we did earlier, we'll pick it up in the next video and see if you got through it on your own, or you can walk through it with me in the next video. So, all right. So here's what I want you to do. And once again, try to get through it. You're going to create a loop that prompts the players for their names and then adds those names to the appropriate array list, as well as initializing their score to 0. Okay. Now, one of the things you can do down here, because we already know that we got the our variables num dice and num players, so we can delete this part. And if everything works in this loop, all right, what don't I have here? Anyways, we'll figure that out in the next video. But oh, I see we don't have a quotation mark at the end of the thing. That's why I was getting the underline red. All right, so if this loop works, of course, we're not going to see anything. We're just going to pop numbers in there. Then it's going to print out all is good. All right, so good luck. Hopefully you get through that, and we'll see you in the next video. And don't worry about it if you don't, because in the next video, I'll walk you through step by step exactly how to do this. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.